always talk in my videos about my own MR2, which is, you know, silly power, rough and ready. I don't care what it looks like. It's just, you know, it's a stupid car. It's not your typical MR2. But this is a customer car, which will show you basically what the full conversion from Thomas actually really looks like. This is like very typical, almost like the off-the-shelf drive-in, drive-out setup. There's a couple of changes I'll show you, which will be slightly different on other ones. But this is basically how it is. And yeah, the typical sort of 250 to 280 horsepower sort of setup. So it's really cool. So let me show you. I mean, this isn't finished, but you'll get the idea. Obviously, ignore the blue hoses. They are literally for mock-up. It's going to be all black silicone. But what this is a APX engine, which is like a Audi S3 225 spec, basically. So like a BAM, but not a BAM, but the KO4 turbo and whatnot. So stock engine, stock KO4 with stock manifold, stock inlet and all that, but all super neat and tidy, OE looking wiring, but very, very clean. You know, no sort of random pipes or wires anywhere. It's less cluttered than the standard one, to be honest. And you've got the MAF sensor there, the map sensor there, intake sensor there, throttle body goes there. You've got massive intercooler, which will, I mean, I think it's 5 inches thick. It's big, and it's going to have some ducting that will seal it off from the rest of the engine bay and feed from up here. Air filters there, which A, sounds good, and B, totally keeps it away from any heat source and actually gives it a good air feed from the side duct as well. That's like a ram air cone filter. And the exhaust is a full 3-inch TIG welded turbo back setup with a flexi pipe, silencer, and this is a cool bit. It's V-banded there, and then you've got, well, it comes with both basically. It comes with this with a sports cat, and notice the tailpipe ends exactly flush with the bottom of the bumper, but it also comes with a decat section of that, so you know, you could do whichever one you want. And yeah, it's properly nice setup. It's not finished yet, of course. You can see there's still some fabrication left on the turbo to intercooler pipe. These will be black silicone when it's done, and it's the same with the exhaust. It's in place, but it needs, Thomas just needs to finish tigging it up. But the car runs and drives and is lovely, just needs finishing, so it'll be finished in the next week or so for a customer. The only other difference is the mounting for the intercooler. On this one, it's a permanent mount, as in the mount has been welded, but for customers when it's going to be supplied, because obviously it wants to be as much of a bolt-on DIY kit as possible, this will be bolt-on with a plate that bolts to either side of the car, so you can literally bolt and unbolt the mounts for the intercooler. And like I said, the ducting will be from there. It'd be aluminium ducting. It may be bolted onto this, or it may actually be made as part of the intercooler, which, you know, it's got to depend on fitment, because obviously you don't want it to be difficult to mount because it's got a duct on there. But if the ducting doesn't affect removing it, which it probably won't, then it might well become part of the intercooler, which makes life easier. So yeah, that exhaust is actually, it sounds great, but it's not particularly loud because it's got a big silencer, but it's 3-inch straight through, so it can handle big power if you need to, more than the standard KO4 can ever do. I mean, more than even a hybrid KO4. Hybrid KO4s can go to like well over 400 horsepower, but a short 3-inch straight through exhaust like that, it can do it, and then some. So yeah, really nice and neat. I mean, look at all the real nice fitment. Obviously keeps the standard battery position standard batteries, so no problem there. Everything, I mean, obviously this is the boost control. This is going to be put somewhere, you know, it's not going to be there. The engine bay will look, you know, ignore these, so it'd look approximately like that. That's what a typical conversion engine bay will look like. You'll have the oil breather system, like an oil catch tank. Don't know where that's going, probably maybe there or over that side, not entirely sure yet, but either way, tons of room either side. It's just a really clean, you know, once these are black, it's gonna look pretty much OE. In fact, it's far tidier, far nicer than the standard 1ZZ setup, and a lot better than a lot of these aftermarket hashed together things. And yeah, it's just a really nice, I mean, it's dusty at the moment, but it's a very tidy facelift car. It's like a 54 plate, so late 04, you know, typical full leather, nice car, and that's how it's gonna be. So yeah, this should be done in, I don't know, week or two. It's not much work left, but it's just being juggled around with buying new parts and developing things, because this is still, it's a customer car, but he's also a friend, so it's become a slight development car with a few bits and pieces as well. I mean, one thing this has got, and it's already done, is, if you remember my previous videos, we had a few different incarnations of the rear engine mount. A lot of these case swap ones, the lower power case swap kits, they don't even have a rear mount. They use a front and two side mounts. There's no such thing as a rear. All the kits, those Rescue Motorsport kits, are with a 180, all four mounts are standard. But as I found with mine, with loads of power, the standard rear mount, it was coping all right with lower power, but the way with launches and all that, because what it was using was the mount with the 180, what they call a dog bone mount, which all 180 powered transverse cars come with, and it works, and that's still an option. But on mine, to try and sort of brace the car in place, we made a different mount with, it was solid, so not really what most people want, because it makes the whole car vibrate. Like a solid mount to the rear, using a plate off the Quattro box, and that worked great. But what Thomas has done now, and I'm going to do to my car once I've finished the current round of mods, is what Thomas has done to this. So my solid mounts will be gone again, because obviously I've got a solid mount that side too, and I won't need it once we've done this. And this new setup will be, all four mounts are standard style. My front and rear ones, it's up to you, but I'm going to be poly front and rear. I've got poly front at the moment, but not rear, because this new setup uses an adapter plate onto where the transfer box is on a Quattro box, like mine does. But rather than a solid mount with rose joints like mine, it reuses the OE rear mount, which is a rubber one. But it's not just the fact that it's the OE one. The where Toyota have positioned it, it does an amazing job while still being rubber of keeping everything in place. I don't know if I can show you on this by hand. I'll try. But while this car has got standard Toyota rubber mounts all four corners, there's no, and obviously they are no doubt the originals, so I've been there since 2004. It is solid. Like Thomas said to me, he said, try your hardest to torque the engine over one way or the other. You can't. So it's because of the geometry of this new rear mount design. While it's soft, it's got compliance, there's not vibration because it's all rubber. It bloody holds the engine in position brilliantly. So I'm going, even with my stupid amounts of power and, you know, acceleration, I'm going to that just poly, and yeah, it's good. So yeah, this is just an update so you can have an idea of what you'd be paying for if you went for one of these kits. Here's an underside view of the customer car in progress, showing the exhaust system. This is basically going to be an off-the-shelf thing you can buy. So, you know, to fit your own, if you're going to do your own kit. And it bolts directly to the turbine outlet on a KO4 turbo. And then you've got a flexi, then a good size silencer, then V-band, then sports cap and the tailpipe. Notice it literally exits flush with the back bumper. And it's also going to come with a unsilenced one for, you know, track use, race use, whenever you don't need emissions things, as in a cap. So yeah, obviously this is just tacked up so far. Thomas is going to make the mounts next time he's in, and yeah, it'll all use like OE mounts and all that. This is a new rear mount design, which looks fairly standard, and that's because it is using the standard mount, same as the front and the side ones do. Originally this, I mean, you got a choice of two kits. You got the original kit, which uses a custom mount off here, and then it bolts to the OE Volkswagen Audi, what they call the dog bone mount, which bolts to the bottom of the gearbox there and there. It goes across like that. But to be honest, that's good. And obviously, you know, Volkswagen thought so. There's millions of cars with it on. But this is better, really. I mean, the dog bone mounts, I found the weak point with my stupid Paro and whatever. But, you know, normal amounts of power, they'd be more than good enough. But on mine, I had a bit too much movement for my needs. But this setup will handle anything. And it's basically using the standard rear mount with an adapter plate, which drops it down slightly and moves it across slightly. And then to an adapter plate on the gearbox, because it only works on the Quattro version of the boxes, because it mounts to the OE transfer case bolt holes. This is actually a good thing, because for the UK at least, if you want petrol ratios rather than diesel, by far the most common and cheapest of these 6-speed boxes are the Quattro ones. There was way more Quattro 1.8Ts with the 6-speed box than 2-wheel drive ones. You can get both, but Quattro ones are way more common and way cheaper, because they're in like every single Audi TT and so on. So they're everywhere, and they're like 10 a penny. So yeah, you got a choice of both. Personally, I would say, well, I think everybody who knows this setup would say this version is better, and also it allows you, just like all the other mounts being OE, it means you've got a choice of the stock rubber mount or buy some aftermarket one. I know there's like poly ones of these and even solid ones of these available, so you can take your pick. But like I said, they only work with Quattro boxes, and the other setup's 2-wheel drive or Quattro box, which mounts how Volkswagen intended it to, with the dog bone on there. Personally, wow, I'm not a massive, I much prefer this, put it that way. I'm not a huge fan of that setup, you know, but it's much of a muchness. You got the choice, price is the same. So, in other news, I got some bits for sale, because as well as upgrading the safety of the car, I want a cage and all that kind of stuff, I'm making a few minor engine changes. Well, not the engine's staying as it is, but the ancillaries, some of them are changing, because well, I'm trying to make things simpler for me and maybe lighter, I'm not sure, but generally I think what I'm doing will suit my goals a bit better, because basically the car's going to spend most of its life doing like the half-mile type stuff, you know, racing supercars and whatever. You know, it's like the Corolla. The half-mile day I did in that was probably the most fun day I've ever had in a car in my fucking life. So, you know, it is the kind of thing I'm going to be doing the most in that. In fact, I already had yesterday somebody asking me if they can book an airfield so we can test my car versus a Lambo or something or other, which is like, well, hell yeah, that's what it's been built for. So I need to get on with this, and yeah, these parts aren't needed. That is the HX27 that I used to have on the engine when it was a standard engine, and it's awesome and spools out of nothing and can easily do well over 300 brake and 300 pound-foot of torque. Probably maxes out about 350. I modified it for a 4-inch turbine outlet too, so it flows mega, and obviously it's pretty much absolutely mint. No play, no damage, no nothing, barely any use. But I'm selling that now because I no longer need it, so that's going to be like 300 quid. I also don't need my charge cooler setup anymore. It's brilliant. Even the data log shows it's never ever, even running 2-bar boost and 8,000 RPM, it's never even hit 40 degrees centigrade. It is fucking good. Most of the time it struggles to hit 30, it's that good. And basically this big, and it is big, it's like 4-inch thick I think it is, eBay charge cooler. These have been used in America on cars making like 800 plus. You know, it's a 3.5-inch inlet and outlet is proper. So yeah, that is the charge cooler. This is a radiator, nice and big, because that's key for a good charge cooler setup. It's all well and good having a big radiator, but if you haven't got the capacity, water capacity and the cooling capacity, it won't stay cool for long. So yeah, I've got this as part of it. Again, it's absolutely mint, does a great job. Actually fits perfectly in the front bumper on the MR2, but it would on anything else as well. And this pump, which is a Davis Craig electric water pump, very high flow. I think it's 80 litres a minute, that one. And yeah, they've all had, well, very little use, as you've seen. I mean, they're technically what, year old, but they've not had that many miles, have they? And yeah, I mean, this is proven to not burst even at like 30 psi plus. You know, it's quality. So yeah, it's been awesome. But I've got a different plan now, so I'm going to sell all this. So I'm just £200 for all that, which is a fucking bargain. So, and I literally had it on a switch, you know, so it'd come on with the ignition or whatever. Well, I had it on a separate switch, but you would just have it on when the car's running all the time. So yeah, last but definitely not least, I'm going back to a mechanical water pump. Despite this being ridiculously good, actually too good for my engine and my cooling system's too good. So it was a struggle to, although it warmed up super fast, because that's a good thing about these, they because they run off temperature. You've got a controller there where you can set the temperature and look at the temperature, and you've got this which is reads the temperature, and it like pulses slowly to bring the temperature up fast. My cooling system was so good and big, overly big, that even like that, once moving, I couldn't keep the temperature sort of even to like 70. It was like cruising. It would be like in the 60s no matter what I tried to do, you know, even with the temperature set at 80, because you run with no thermostat. So you know, the water's going around normally regardless. And my oil temp, obviously, because my oil temp was fine, it was still at 100 degrees plus. That's no problem. And water temp being lower the better is good for performance, but it shows it was a bit overkill for me. And also I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, so like as little as possible can go wrong when it comes to these days and whatever I'm attending, because I always drive there and back, and I don't want to be stranded or whatever just because some silly little thing happens. So I'm going back to a normal mechanical one because I don't need a better one. If you need a better cooling, this is brilliant, because I mean this thing's 150 litres per hour it's rated at. It's rated for like even like 7 litre plus V8s. It flows ridiculously, but that's massive overkill for my car. I didn't realise that at the time, but you know, live and learn. So yeah, I mean, on a car with a front engine, or just not as good radiator setup or whatever, something that gets hot, that is perfect. But for me, my cooling setup's that good, I don't need it. You know, so I'm going back to a normal mechanical one, just, you know, the standard one. So yeah, and that, so the pump and the controller with instructions and the wiring, even though it's like 2 minutes to wire it in, and obviously the temp sensor, all of that, £200. New there, over 300 if I recall, for the whole lot, including the you know, the monitor, you know, the controller and all that business. So yeah, £200. So yeah, if you want any of this, give me a shout. Well, I'm not going to show you what I've done to the car yet until the next video. Here's something I have done. I made the hardtop a bit lighter. As standard, these are fucking heavy. They are like 21 and a half, 20, almost 22 kilos basically. Heavy. But although I wanted to keep the rear screen, because I don't like plastic rear screens on cars where you're doing high speed, because I've had it in the past and they try and pop out. So while I was wanted to keep the rear screen, and I want to keep the rubber seals around it, so it's never going to be the lightest thing in the world, I've actually taken quite a lot of weight out of it. 15 and a half now. 6 kilos? Wow, a bit more than 6. That's not bad. Rogue Motorsport make the lightweight race versions of these hardtops now, and with no screening, I'm just literally a bare hardtop. No rubber, no fucking, you know, no rubber seals, no screen, no nothing. They weigh about 6 kilos. I do wonder how much the weight on this is the screen, because I know from previous experience with rear screens, they tend to be fucking heavy. So I don't know how much heavier this is than the Rogue Motorsport, you know, race version. I expect that is just a single skin. This, although I've trimmed it down, is still not a single skin everywhere. Do you know what I mean? So it's not like super floppy. But yeah, I know most people wouldn't dare cut up an OE hardtop, but this one I got cheap anyway. I mean, what it cost me, 800 quid? And it wasn't that tidy anyway, do you know what I mean? So, and the thing is, it's like, if I buy one of those Rogue Motorsport lightweight ones, it's 400 quid plus VAT for the hardtop itself, 180 plus VAT for the screen, plus that's still not got any rubber seals or any of that shite on it. So it's like, well, it's gonna end up costing me, you know, about 800 quid, and I worry that, you know, like I said, floppy screen and high speeds, because obviously I want to be doing like half mile and standing mile days in this car. So a floppy rear screen, yeah, it will want to pop out at speed. So removing, well, like I said, 5-6 kilos out of this, I think is my best option, and certainly my cheapest option. But yeah, what I've done here is kind of the what I've been doing to the whole car. I've done a load. I'm not going to show you the next video though, because it just looks a mess at the moment. Let me complete it a bit more. But basically, obviously, I've got the added weight of the cage. It's not that heavy. I've never weighed it, but it's not particularly heavy. But I'm saving weight in other areas, so hopefully by the end of it, even with the cage, it's no heavier maybe, not sure. It's certainly going to be not much heavier, but way safer, even easier to work on, and even simpler, and just better. It might, honest to God, it might even weigh less, because I have removed more weight around it where I can without spending money, because the biggest weight savings would be super lightweight panels, you know, carbon panels or whatever, but they are all the money. The doors are heavy as fuck, and if you look back in a previous video there, when I cut one up just to see, you can chop everything out of it you can while it's still being a door, and it took hours, and I only saved like 7 kilos each side, I think it was, and the doors are 25 kilos anyway, so it's like each, that is. So yeah, it's not great. I mean, this looks like I've saved about 5. I've removed, well, I'm not going to, you know, I'll show you in the next video, but I've removed the inner skin, you know, the strengthening ribs from the bonnet and the boot. That's probably only removed about 1 kilo or so each, nothing much, but you know, there's no downside to that. And I'm removing more wiring I don't need, and what, obviously, as you would have seen in this video, I'm selling, well, I've already sold it actually. So earlier on I mentioned it in this video, and it's bloody sold already, but the bucket seats and the charge cooler setup are both sold. What the buckets are being replaced with is lighter. What the charge cooler setup's being replaced with, I think, is lighter. So yes, I honestly, even with a cage, I don't think it's gonna be heavier. It might be lighter. I don't know, because honestly, well, as you know, I didn't even fully weigh it previously. But whatever, it's gonna be better because I want it to be safer, you know. So yeah, anyway, you'll see the rest of that on the next video, where the car will, well, I'll show you. Should be finished by then, because to be honest, I'm flying through it. You know, cage is done, panels are lighter. Yeah, I'm very far through it already, so by the time you see the next video, it should be done. So yeah, anyway, hope you like this completely MR2 free and action free video. Well, not my MR2 free, I've shown you the other one. And yeah, stay tuned, because the next video will be the unveiling of sort of the rebirth of the car. So watch your space.